DTFF.
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Welcome back to DTFF, everyone. Happy Tuesday evening. If you're joining us live, we are back. We're doing our thing. We got a great show tonight. We're jumping ahead of everyone else, I hope, to talk about free agency this week. Instead of doing it next week on the eve of free agency, we're doing it. We're trying to get a jump start here. So I'm really excited about this, Jake. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing terrific. Although I feel a little sheepish, I must admit. As I was watching our opening vignette, I realized I'm wearing the same shirt that I was in that vignette. How embarrassing.
Oh my God.
Embarrassing.
I'm sure our thousands of fans will ridicule you and point it out in all the comments here of the show. So
I expect your harshly worded criticisms to be thrust my way. But no, I'm doing fantastic outside of that. How are you doing?
can't complain. You know, life is life. Work is work.
Anytime
No
somebody
use
says
complaining.
that, I immediately call them a liar. But we don't have to complain about football stuff right now because we do have football news happening. Which has been
Lots of it happening, which is nice.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about some of it, obviously, during the free agency section of that, because a lot of it is related to the free agency stuff. You know, let's just save it. Let's savor.
Yeah, let's save it all. That's right. Yeah. It's what we call a teaser in the biz.
Best in the biz at it. You know, I want to jump ahead to what I'm drinking because I'm raving about this right now.
Ooh, raving.
It's rave worthy. It is peach bourbon iced tea. It's so damn good. I cannot tell you. I feel like
when you say rave worthy, are you talking like
glow sticks,
EDM
baby.
music, glow sticks, the pacifiers, just like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got my rave stick. It's not a rave stick. It's actually a thing that you use to like light candles, but it kind of could double.
It looks like a little taser.
Yeah, that too. It could do that too. Albert, welcome into the chat, Albert.
Hey, Albert.
Hello to you as well. Jump into the chat, everybody who's watching, by the way. We love your input. We have our thoughts about free agency. That's what we're going to talk about, obviously, but we'd love to hear yours as well. Dustin, what are you drinking, though, tonight?
Me, I am still working down this keg of breakfast stout I made. So,
old standby.
Yep, just trying to work that bad boy down here. I still got like half a keg left. I gave it a little lift-see. It felt pretty heavy yet. So,
all right. I believe in you.
Well, I'll get drunk. Don't worry. It's not going to go to waste.
Josh, welcome to the chat. He said it could hold floss too, referring to my rave stick. So many uses for that rave stick. I'm glad that we brought that into the fold. I don't want to waste too much time up front because we do have so many free agents to really talk about. Do we want to just do our favorite segment already? Is that okay?
Let's hit our drunk trade of the week. Yeah, let's do it.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
This week's drunk trade comes to us from where else but Reddit.
Our favorite
this is
spot.
From Reddit user John Bon Leahy. I don't think that's how relations work, but do you think he's related to John Bon Jovi? That's my first question. Question number one.
No. You know, as I was reading it, I wanted to continue on and say John Bon Leahy. Like John Bon Leahy.
Oh my God, please stop with that.
Okay.
You please stop with that. Let's talk about this drunk trade, though. That'll gloss over what just happened. John Bon Leahy says, I traded 2/3 for Darren Waller on some random ass Thursday night football bar outing last year. First of all, kudos to the bar outing on a Thursday night. They said it was 100% a fuck it, let's have 6 more beers each to celebrate and miss work tomorrow trade.
What a good friend.
Great variation on a trade here. Honestly, they submitted this, and it seems like they're not that psyched about it. It's 2 third-round picks, though.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you, really, Dustin, is Darren Waller. Is he going to be worth anything this year? He's not retiring. We know that much, at least. So that's something. Apparently, he was considering it.
I would give 2/3 for Darren Waller. Is he worth 2/3? Maybe not. But again, like you said, they're 2/3. Like, what else are you going to get for him? You might as well get a guy that has shown that when he's healthy, he will get the ball and he'll give you production. It's just knowing what weeks he's actually going to be healthy and on the field. Even if he is maybe just a little dinged up, how involved is he going to be? That's always the question. But for 2/3, yeah, I would say fuck it as well. It's like I've made way worse trades than that. That's a little baby drunk trade.
Oh, yeah. Look, in the vein of just getting a trade to happen, because you go through fits and spurts of that, there's some lulls. I'm in a lull right now. I can't get a goddamn trade to happen in any of my dynasty leagues. Sometimes you just want to do something like this to feel something, and I'm completely okay with that. I do feel a little bit of residual shame still because I was so in on Darren Waller last year.
Same.
This is bringing up all of those bad feelings, but what are you going to do?
And see, I was trying not to let my poor analysis from last year cloud my vision on Darren Waller. It's like, is he
That's
worth
good.
2/3? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Look, I traded more for him last year than 2/3. So John Bon Leahy, who I think this is a perfectly acceptable drunk trade. You warned me up to it. What can I say? I like it more than I let on initially. All right, good drunk trade. That does lead into our free agency sort of section here pretty nicely, honestly, because one of the hottest names is Saquon Barkley. I don't know. Do you want to just talk about him since we're already talking about the Giants? Dare we branch right in?
Let's do it.
Fuck it. I think he's one of the hottest names on the market right now. Saquon Barkley, certain for running backs is. So we talked about Darren Waller. Barkley is not going to get franchise tagged.
No.
Right?
Nope.
So they came out, they said as much.
And franchise tag deadline was today. So cannot add anyone to the franchise tag as of the recording of this episode. So yes, he is officially a free agent come March 8th, 11th, whatever day it is.
11th? I think 11th. There's the tampering period that always starts earlier.
Yeah.
The legal tampering period. I never know when that actually is. But Saquon Barkley, so he's not going to be with the Giants almost certainly. I mean, he could hypothetically re-sign with them. I just don't see it happening. So Saquon Barkley goes from the Giants backfield where he has all of the opportunities, but a trash offensive line, trash team around him. Does he go to another team that at least lets him get close to the opportunities that he had with the Giants? I guess that's our question number one, probably.
I think that any team that signs him knows he can be the 3-down back. So, and if you're going to be in the running for Saquon and paying the amount of money that he's probably going to command on the market, you're going to have him as a feature back. Let's be honest. Maybe not quite to the degree that at the Giants, maybe there's a little bit more of a spelling to him just to extend him through the season and maybe, help extend his career on the second contract here. But I mean, he's going to demand high end money. And I think whatever team has him is going to feature him.
Yeah, I would say out of all of the guys right now, he's probably due for the highest price tag just because of his age and everything else in relative comparison to the rest of the group. But it is such a stacked running back free agency group.
It's
I don't
crazy.
even know. Massive money. I guess the opposite look is the rookie class is supposedly not very strong for running backs.
Correct.
That's the thought process, at least. Josh coming in hot with Saquon going to the Texans, which would be a dream scenario. I would get on board with that fully.
100%.
Right? He goes to the Texans. Right now they have Dameon Pierce, who is sticking around. And I think that's it. Because everybody else is free agents. So Dameon Pierce is not going to be pushing Saquon Barkley for touches here. And that's a young team on the rise, young offense looking amazing. Is there a better team than the Texans? I posit there might be one, but it'll very much be determined by Austin Eckler. Because if Austin
Eh,
Eckler really
yes,
does leave
I
the
was thinking.
Chargers,
Yes, I was thinking that as well. I was thinking Chargers. Harbaugh loves to run the ball, so that
yes.
would be a great scenario where he'd get that usage. What should be a better offense than what we've seen. Um, there's teams that need running back. Vikings got rid of Alexander Madison, so they're in need of a running back. The Packers, maybe, if they're going to cut Aaron Jones, if they can't restructure his contract, they're
Yeah.
obviously going to be in need because AJ Dillon is a free agent. So, I mean, there's lots of teams that could use running back help. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of, are they going to want to pay a premium price? And when I say premium, I mean for the running back class. We know running backs' salaries are depressed compared to other offensive skill positions, but he's going to be at the top of that level.
Which is so fucking lame, by the way, that their value's still that depressed, even after the cap increase, 30 million. It's like, oh, great. Everybody gets a piece of that except for the running backs, apparently. I just really like the combination of Harbaugh and Saquon Barkley. I would like to nickname him Jim Har Run the Ball, by the way. I don't know if we can get that to catch on. Probably not.
We
I
can
did
try.
make a comment into our own chat. But I would love that. I think Chargers or Texans are great. Like you said, there's a lot of teams that need a running back, but there's also a lot of running backs out there. I would dare say it's maybe a coin flip between Saquon and Derrick Henry in terms of fantasy workloads right now. Does Derrick Henry just transplant into whatever backfield we just talked about and it's the same? Or is there a
I
better
don't think
fit for
so.
Derrick? Yeah.
I mean, I think at this stage of at his career with Derrick Henry, he's never been a pass catcher, so he's pretty limited on what he can do. While I still think there's some gas left in the tank, are we gonna see what we've traditionally seen out of Derrick Henry? And I know he kind of sat behind was that DeMarco Murray the first couple seasons in the league, so his age, he's older, but he did sit a couple seasons essentially, but the wear and tear he has gotten once he got the workload has been massive. So I'm a little bit more on the fence about Derrick Henry and what we can expect. I don't know compared to these other guys, just because he doesn't have the pass catching chops. That's my big concern. You got your Austin Eckler, you got Tony Pollard. Who else is on this list? Josh Jacobs can catch the ball. DeAndre Swift can catch the ball. I mean, you got all these guys that are good at being pass catchers, or at least capable pass catchers, where that's not really Derrick Henry's thing. Can he catch balls? Yeah, but he's never been featured that way. So I don't know that
Mofo can house a 90-yard screen like nobody's business. So don't you sleep on Derrick Henry altogether in the pass catching.
I'm just
What about if he goes with the other Harbaugh? What if he goes over to the Ravens? I would be so damn excited to see Derrick Henry.
You and Josh, man.
Josh, you're right after my heart. Yes, Ravens all in on Derrick Henry. I don't know that there's a better fit in all of free agency outside of, again, Saquon to the Chargers, which I really love. Then Derrick Henry going, he doesn't need to then absorb the full brunt of the workload if he's operating with Lamar Jackson, is my feeling on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best spot for him to go.
Yeah. I love that Josh said Baltimore is where Titans greats end their careers. There is some truth to that for sure. And he wouldn't be asked to do as much pass catching, to your point, with the Ravens as he might on your garden variety team. And they have both of their big running backs, star running backs for the Ravens right now, if you want to call them that, entering free agency. J.K. Dobbins, who just hasn't been healthy. Gus the Bus Edwards is hitting the free agency market. So
is he
there's
though?
An opening. You think they're going to re-sign Gus?
They seem to really like him there, and they use him. So I would be shocked if he leaves. I just don't know that he would command any sort of market. I mean, he's a capable
think the
back.
Packers signed Gus Edwards as the AJ Dillon replacement. Sorry, I think that's exactly their speed. I think that if they pair Gus Edwards with Aaron Jones, it would get them what they need. So
probably. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, but I think the best fit for him would just to be remaining in Baltimore.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Do we want to stick with running backs? Do we want to jump around a little bit? We've kind of buried the lead, I think, with one other
Yeah.
star attraction on this
Well,
thing.
yeah, let's jump around here. We don't need to just stick all to running backs here.
All right. Well, we talked about this guy a little bit last week, but let's revisit Kirk Cousins. I think he's the top of the quarterback heap, certainly in free agency.
Mhm.
Every Vikings fan that I've talked to over the last 5 weeks has been like, that fucking guy had better not re-sign with the Vikings. He had
What?
better go somewhere else. Nobody wants a better than average quarterback. Everybody wants an elite quarterback, of which
Well,
there's like 4.
and looking at the list of free agents, you are not gonna get an elite quarterback. Like you said, he is the top of the crop here. The Vikings, unless they, for some reason, as we talked about last week, move up into the draft
Mhm.
to get one of these rookie quarterbacks, but then you're working with a rookie quarterback, and there's no guarantees there. At least with Kirk Cousins, you know what you get. He's above average by far. I mean,
Yeah.
if we did not have Jordan Love on our team, I would not have a problem getting Kirk Cousins on our team.
Depending on the contract.
I think. Well, I'm
Contract
just
is going to
saying,
be the
like,
massive thing for
but
him.
skill wise, like to take
yeah.
his skill set, like I love what he does. He seems like a good locker room guy, good team player, like all those other intangible things. Like it seems like he's got it. It's just, yeah, like
He's
you said,
got the
the
big
contract
chain
thing
that he likes to wear. So he's
Yeah,
got a little bit of the
he's
Ryan
got the
Fitzmagic
Riz
now.
as they say.
Don't say things like Riz. But Kirk Cousins does have above average. I feel so bad because everybody shits on him. And exactly what you're saying, though, there is at least 10 to 12 teams in the NFL, fan bases right now, that if Kirk Cousins went to their team on a 2-year contract, they'd be excited about it. Very excited about it. Just because you get rid of what you perceive to be a slightly above average quarterback does not mean the grass gets greener for you automatically. So I think that Kirk Cousins ultimately resigns. I'm on an island, I think, with this a little bit. But Justin Jefferson wants to play with Kirk Cousins. You want to lock up Justin Jefferson if you're the Vikings. You have an extra $30 million in cap. You have some other moves you can make. You don't have to pay it all this year. That's the beautiful thing about the cap. You just spread that shit out down the line. So I don't know. I think his best fit is with the Vikings still. But if he doesn't go there,
I agree.
Any other spots that you would see jump off the page for Kirk?
Atlanta, I think would be a good fit there with all those offensive pieces. It'd be interesting to see maybe like Washington, they need a quarterback. Apparently Pittsburgh's, sticking with Kenny Pickett. So can't even wish him to go there. But I think Atlanta would be the best spot for him.
Yeah, I think Atlanta or otherwise Russ and Kirk could just make a switcheroo and he goes over to
which very
except
well
the
could
problem
happen.
with that is that now that leads into us talking about Russell Wilson. Denver's got no money. Denver had to pay $85 million in dead cap to release Russell Wilson officially on the first day of free agency. $85 million. How the fuck does that even happen?
Something obviously went on there, whether it's Russ and Sean Payton or with the GM and Sean Payton. Yeah, there's something that happened there where they obviously was just like, we need to cut our fucking losses. Well, I don't care how much this costs. They even try to like trade them or, it's like they even try to get something in a trade. Like they're just like, nope, fuck it, we're done. So that it's interesting to, I think, just keep your ears open to see if anything comes out about this. I doubt that it will, since we haven't heard anything yet of this sudden release. And I shouldn't say sudden, like there was, talk kind of towards the end of last season that he could be released and whatnot, but it's still very surprising.
Debacle with the thing in his contract where Peyton was like, hey, we're going to sit you this week because you have this guarantee in your contract for your injury. And if you don't remove that from your contract, you're benched. Like that's the story that's being told, at least as of right now. So it's shady business.
It is.
But for Russell, I'm not in the habit of backing up Russell Wilson very often.
But he's got so much talent.
Stop. He's got so many Subway sandwiches named after him. I do think that Russell Wilson gets a little bit of a bad rap for last year. A, I don't think he played as poorly as people suggest. And B, I still think a lot of that falls on Sean Payton. Like, do we know much about Sean Payton outside of Drew Brees and Sean Payton?
Well, and
really,
you have to give him a little bit of a break. He played under 2 head coaches in 2 seasons.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's a lot for any player to take in, especially at the quarterback position. If you have to learn a whole new offensive scheme, you know, it's different verbiage, you know, it's just a whole different animal. So I think you're right. You do have to give him a little bit of a pass for that, but you know, he is getting up there in age now. At that point, we've kind of seen a bit of a decline consecutively over years now. So is he kind of hit that cliff? And I mean, someone will still take a chance on him, even if he's
Pittsburgh. Please,
What?
Pittsburgh, he's free. Why are you not going out? And maybe the shit that they said, because they're like, we're not adding to our quarterback room this offseason. We're going in with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. I guess that was before Russell Wilson officially got released. The dude can literally sign for the veteran minimum. He doesn't need the money. He's getting paid by Denver still.
Very true.
That's still an upgrade over those guys, I gotta believe.
Full show.
Okay. All right.
But
well,
yeah. I just don't know. There'll be a team that, I mean, there's so many quarterback needy teams. Someone will take a chance on them, but it's not going to be anywhere that I think excites any of us, especially for fantasy purposes. You know, because you got New England, you got Washington, you know, like you said, Pittsburgh. It's just like, those are all gross. It's just, you know, like I said, maybe if he ends up with the Vikings, you know, they've got offensive pieces there. If it was maybe Atlanta, I don't know about Atlanta. That doesn't excite me nearly as much as with Kirk Cousins there, but
yeah, I'd rather have Kirk or Justin Fields get traded to Atlanta than have Russell go there. Because I want Kyle Pitts to be a thing this year. I think Kirk Cousins can make that happen. I think Justin Fields can make that happen. By the way, Josh in the comments saying $85 million in dead money actually proves that the cap is real. Which again, TBD, Josh. I don't know. There's going to be some way for them to flounder out of this. And welcome Toronto Dave into the chat, by the way. A long time no chat. Love to see you here. Shall we move away from Russell, please?
I guess, since you don't want to talk about him anymore, that's fine.
Well, I think he's gotten plenty of airtime here. I want to talk about a duo because I'm curious to see. We got news. Mike Evans, he's not a free agent anymore. He got re-signed by the Bucks. Nice deal.
Best move they could have done.
Yes, fully agreed. But that's a 2-year extension, $52 million. I think he's worth it. I think he's certainly worth it. He'll probably retire as a Buck now.
Hey, all he does is put up 1,000 yards and 8 to 12 touchdowns every year. I don't know why you want to keep him around.
No big deal. Already in the top 15 in total touchdowns scored by a wide receiver. But Baker Mayfield then. So, I don't know. Correct me if I sound stupid, but do it nicely.
Okay.
I assumed where Mike Evans goes, Baker Mayfield goes in terms of the re-signing. So if Mike Evans got signed by another squad, I thought Baker would be out. But now that Mike Evans has been re-signed, is Baker just going back to Tampa? Or because there's other teams that do need quarterbacks.
It's true, but I think Baker found a good fit in Tampa this last year. No one was expecting to have him the season like he did. And if he can stay in Tampa, have that consistency, he's got, you know, his wide receiver back, you know, his number 1 wide receiver, still have Chris Godwin. I mean, they've got a lot of offensive pieces there. He found his fit. He's a starter. He looked really good. He's in a relatively weak division. So I don't know why he would want to test the market somewhere else. You know, he's made money off of his initial rookie contract. So it's not like he's in the need for, you know, millions more dollars. And I don't know how much more he could actually make on the free agent market. I think he found a home finally in Tampa, and I think he'd be foolish to leave there.
Yeah, I don't think he goes and competes for a spot like with the Rams, like if they don't think Matt Stafford's back is healed enough, is he going to do that? Is he going to go to the Seahawks now that Geno Smith is maybe on the outs there? I don't know. I don't think any of that really makes sense. I don't see him going to back up Aaron Rodgers in New York or that kind of thing. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think just re-sign Baker. If you're doing like best ball drafts now, just plan on Baker being in Tampa Bay. That's what I would say.
And just sticking with Baker here, just more of looking ahead to next season. Assuming he re-signs with Tampa Bay, where would you have him in like your quarterback rankings, roughly?
He was still very sporadic last year, but give him another chance in a system that he'll have to adapt to a little bit differently, I guess, this year. Who's the offensive coordinator this year? We talked about it, didn't we, in the coaching carousel? Liam Cohen. That's right. He was the OC for the Rams the last few years. So he'll have a different offensive coordinator, but I think that I would be comfortable with him in the QB 14 to 16 range. I'm not drafting him as my starter in a one quarterback league. I'm not going to go that far with him still. Just because he's too up and down. That's all.
But yeah, I think with that stability there, assuming he stays in Tampa, I was going to say, and kind of like that 14, 15 range, maybe a fringe QB1 if things kind of roll the right way for him. But
if you punt quarterback in a one quarterback league and people start taking their second quarterback before you draft your first, you might end up with Baker Mayfield as kind of a consolation prize. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Let's move. I'm just asking one question on this guy because he's technically not a free agent. T. Higgins, also franchise tagged by the Bengals. But does he still get traded?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think they'll work out a deal and keep him around.
I'm very interested if he doesn't stick with the Bengals. I think the fit is the Titans. I think he goes to the Titans. He's got ties with that coaching staff. He's talked about wanting to like return home a little bit on socials. And I think obviously the right thing to do was to franchise tag him because you don't let him just walk.
No, heavens no.
Bit of,
at least you can get something in return for him. No, I agree. That was probably the best move they could have done.
Yeah. So I'm not locked in on him staying with Cincinnati. And in fact, I think that it's just a matter of time before he gets traded. Not that I'm like asking that, but for fantasy, it does feel like he's reached his ceiling with the Bengals. A lot of that simply because of injuries and all that. But it's just hard for me to envision him as ever being a top 12 guy there. I just don't think it happens.
So here's a question. Why we're talking Bengals, and this could tie into free agency with the depth of this running back class. What if they were to trade or cut Joe Mixon and sign one of these running backs? Because I was looking at his contract. He's only got this 1 year left on his contract. And it's under $3 million for a dead cap hit if they were to cut him.
Yeah.
Do you see any world of possibility where that might happen?
Because it's such a loaded running back free agency class. Yeah. And there's already been rumors. There's been scuttlebutt out on the socials that Joe Mixon, thank you very much, that Joe Mixon could be out. And again, not obviously a free agent right now, but it's a little bit of, it's a Derek Carr situation, but for running back. We've always said Kirk Cousins is like a better Derek Carr, right? So Joe Mixon is not to Kirk Cousins level from a running back perspective, but he's like at a Derek Carr level. He's fine. He's okay. But if you're a team like the Bengals who has Super Bowl aspirations this year,
right?
I think you can do better in one of these guys. So, Josh Jacobs probably not, but if they can land Saquon somehow, some way, sure. Maybe if they land DeAndre Swift would be very interesting with them, honestly.
I was thinking Austin Eckler get a real like true pass catcher, especially if T. Higgins does get traded. That opens up some receiving work there where maybe they might utilize the running back out of the backfield a little bit more.
Well, and they refuse to add a legitimate tight end to their team, so you might as well get somebody eating up the middle of the field. What? Don't give me that look.
That is just insulting to the tight ends on their team.
To who? Name them. Name their tight end or take that back.
I can't name it, but
thank you very much for proving my point, Dustin.
it's let me. I'll tell you who they are.
After
I'm
Googling,
looking up
you
the
had
roster.
to Google their tight end. Damn it! That again is what I'm saying.
I know the guy has like a total normal name, and I can't think of it because it's so just whatever. Oh, so here it is. So they've
Tony
got
Smith.
Irv Smith Jr.
Oh, Irv is a free agent, I believe, as well this year. So he's not even going to stick around.
Michael
probably.
Wilcox.
Okay.
Drew
no
Sample,
disrespect. No disrespect to
Tanner
Michael Wilcox.
Hudson.
Or
I mean,
Drew
look at
Sample,
these
or
names.
Any of these names you're probably making up at this point. No disrespect to any of them. But yeah, it would be interesting. I would love DeAndre Swift, though, because he is a great pass catcher and still has so much tread on the tires. He's only been asked to do one thing or the other recently, but I don't know. I would be very interested in that. Josh says Bengals have literally no tight ends on their roster. All of them are free agents. So there we go. I don't even feel bad then about that.
Well, geez, Jake, I'm going to blame you because they're not on the show sheet for the free agency here. So I'm going to say bad work on your end here. Geez, make me look foolish in front of all of our fans. Way to go.
There are like 800 free agents. I don't even think that's an overestimation. All right, so we talked about T. Higgins. The other one I'll just throw out here, Michael Pittman. It's worth talking about with him. He's in a very similar situation. I've thought all along he was going to stick around with the Colts. He got franchise tagged. I don't think he does get traded. Do you?
No, there's talk that they're working on a long-term extension. So I think this was just let's get him locked up for this year so that we know we have them. Now they can continue to work on that contract without having to worry about him dipping into free agency at all. So I think it's just more of a formality than anything else.
Full agreement. And that brings us to sort of the top of the remaining heap for wide receivers, I think at least.
Big name.
Which is Calvin Ridley.
Big name.
Am I off? Yeah,
no, go ahead. No,
what?
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, am I off in this? Because every single one of these top tier wide receiver free agents, people have been saying for the last 5 years, send them to Kansas City. They're going to sign with Kansas City. I already saw wish casting on Mike Evans going to Kansas City, T. Higgins going to Kansas City, Michael Pittman going to Kansas City.
Of course.
And by the way, it's not that obviously they can win a Super Bowl without wide receivers or a top tier wide receiver. But Travis Kelce is getting older, and you eventually got to think about life after Travis Kelce. Doesn't it feel like Calvin Ridley is the highest they could afford anyways, and maybe made the most sense? Am I off?
Probably. But I don't know, especially with Kelce still there. You know, he'll be there for another year or two, probably. I just I would rather them if I had to pick one of the wide receivers on the list to go to Kansas City, I would look at a guy like Marquise Brown or Gabe Davis. You know, look for a more speedy guy that can stretch the field because they're not going to re-sign MVS. Who was that player?
They've got expected to be that player.
Yes, and then they've already got Rashee Rice, who is he's not a world beater, you know, so they need someone that can get that downfield speed. So I think, like I said, either Gabe Davis or Marquise Brown would be a better fit in Kansas City than Calvin Ridley.
That's very interesting. I secretly think the only wide receiver they're going to sign is like Paris Campbell. And we're all going to go through this offseason again, the same.
Get my hopes up again.
What's going to happen?
I had such fond feelings and hopes and dreams for Paris Campbell.
Okay, glad you pointed to your chest there after you said that, by the way. I thought that was going a different way.
I couldn't think of a good metaphor, but
he's
I was
such
trying.
a cheap signing. We'll see. I hope not. So Marquise Brown then. So if he doesn't end up going to the Chiefs, which I think would be completely fine, I would also like him with the Bills, by the way. I think they need to
replacing the Gabe Davis role.
Not even that, because I don't think that he replaces Gabe Davis. I think Marquise Brown does more than that, but I think that they need a legit or semi-legit guy opposite of Stephon Diggs at this point.
Well, they need more of a downfield threat too. Stephon Diggs is not that guy. And Marquise Brown is young, like he's still relatively young. Or Stephon is, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I think that'd be an interesting fit because unless they still have Kincaid and Dawson Knox there, so they
Mhm.
wide out Kincaid a little bit more and use him in that role as a more of a wide receiver than a tight end, and not have
You
to
get
worry about
crazy with
that.
it.
But I
You're
don't know.
going to see Twitter especially blow up at the concept of Dalton Kincaid again. He will be ranked inside the top
Mhm.
3 tight ends by the end of this offseason if that happens. I think if they do, to your point, if they sign somebody like Marquise Brown, I don't know. Does that actually drop Dalton Kincaid down any for you now that we're saying,
No,
okay, mouths to feed and all of that? No?
no,
Okay,
I don't think so.
fair. I like it. I like it. I don't have much more to say, but let's talk about Gabe Davis. So if Gabe Davis does go to the Chiefs, he's going to be so overdrafted. He's going to be so enthusiastically overdrafted.
100%.
Like round 4 in drafts. Do you think he would get there?
I think so.
Fuck
Just
me.
because
I would
it's
be
the
so
Chiefs.
out.
Just because it's
I
the Chiefs.
know.
That's the
God.
only reason.
I think he should go to the Ravens, by the way. I think the Ravens is a great fit for him. They still need somebody that is more of that type of just like, get the fuck down there. Let me chuck it to you. I think Gabe Davis would fit that need very well. And I don't think they have a ton of cap space to work with. I don't think the Ravens do. So I think he would probably fit that pretty well.
I
don't
mean,
know.
I would be interesting to see like maybe Carolina as well. They need help with wide receiver.
True.
So that would at least give them kind of a more veteran presence on a very young team.
Mhm.
They
Yeah,
obviously
I
have
don't.
cap space.
Yes, absolutely. They have so much cap space. I think they should add primarily through the draft, Carolina, rather than go too whole hog into free agency.
hmm
But you're going to have to supplement. I don't know. I think like Tyler Boyd would probably end up going to Carolina if he doesn't
Yeah,
sign with the Patriots. Tyler Boyd feels like a Patriot signing too.
because that's what they need is another slot wide receiver.
It's all they do. That's all that they're.
Them and the Giants, all they want is slot wide receivers.
Josh says Ridley to the Patriots would be interesting because they're the most
Ooh.
desperate, have the most money to spend. Yeah, I for sure get that. Agrees that the Ravens is a great fit for Gabe. Thank you, Josh, for telling me that. I like when people agree with me. So tight ends, let's just throw them in here a bit to break through this. We got to talk about it.
There's a few.
Dalton Schultz, we don't have to talk about because Dalton Schultz also re-signed with the Texans, so he is off the market now officially. So get that one off. Now, the problem with that is Dalton Schultz was kind of the only name that I felt confident in from the tight ends. Everybody else, it's pretty bad.
It's not a great list.
It's Hunter Henry. It's Noah Fant, who's still young at least, still agile, the most agile of this crop. Gerald Everett, Jonnu Smith, and the recently cut Logan Thomas from Washington. I actually want to stop on Logan Thomas. So he was cut by Washington. I think probably just because the guy's always injured, right? So
yeah, even this last
somebody
year,
else
which was his best year in like the last 5, because he was relatively healthy, he still did get dinged up. Like he didn't have the concussions, which was his big issue, a few years ago. It wasn't that this year, but yeah, I think at this point of his career, he's probably going to be a backup somewhere. I could see him being like a Jimmy Graham, just kind of hanging on the teams because he is very talented. And he is kind of a big bodied tight end that, can get open in the end zone. So I could see him just kind of hanging around for another 10 years, just vulturing touchdowns from whoever the main tight end is on the team.
Send him to the Bucks. Send him to the Bucks along with Cade Otton. He'll vulture those touchdowns from Cade.
There'll be a nice
Win-win.
2 tight end set there. It wouldn't be a bad fit.
Win-win for everybody. Okay. Let's talk about Noah Fant, who's the youngest guy on the list by
Really
far.
the only one we care
I'm
about
just-
on this list.
Yeah, for fantasy, probably. If he goes to an interesting enough landing spot, I'd be back in on Noah Fant, I think. But is there a real fit for him? I've been racking my brain trying to find a legitimate fit for Noah Fant. Maybe the Bears, if they want to run 2 tight end sets with him and Kmet. Maybe.
Houston, maybe.
But they just re-signed Dalton Schultz. Do they need
Oh,
another
that was
guy?
Houston. Yeah. God
Yeah,
damn
do
it.
they need another one? I
No,
mean, they can always use pass catchers, I guess, but I would
no.
say that's kind of it. I'm stumped otherwise.
Washington. Now that they got rid of Logan Thomas.
Let's go ahead and do some clear swapping. Panthers. Actually, I did not list this
New
because this came
England,
out super
maybe.
recent, but Hayden Hurst, I guess, is cut. So maybe Noah Fant goes and takes over that. That's actually not the worst fit with the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's put a pin in that. If he goes to the Panthers, I might get excited for him.
Excited how? Like tell me your level of excitement here.
Okay, so he won't be my only tight end drafted or my first tight end drafted. He would be okay in dynasty terms. Noah Fant would be worth a couple of thirds. Take that drunk trade from the Darren Waller thing before. Send a couple of thirds to Noah Fant. See what happens.
Okay,
that's what I would do. Maybe I'd even do that just now, just to get ahead of it.
You could probably just get away with 1/3 at this point.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But I don't think 2 is, severe overpay either. It's like we talked about with Darren Waller. It's a couple thirds, like just dart throws anyway.
They don't do anything for you. That's all I want to talk about with tight ends, unless there's somebody else itching on the tip of your tongue.
No, I think he was the most exciting tight end of the group to talk about tonight.
All right. Well, let's bounce back to running backs then briefly. So Austin Eckler, you mentioned him as a pass catching option for a couple of different teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Austin Eckler wants in free agency. Does he want the paycheck or does he want the opportunity to get the Super Bowl? Because it's going to be two very different sets of teams looking for him, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if he wants the Super Bowl, could he not do incredible things with the Chiefs? I think I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, but God damn it. Replacing the Jerick McKinnon role.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
That would be I think all fantasy football would lose their pants at that point. That would be the most exciting signing in a long time.
It's flying everywhere. It would take away from Pacheco, though. I don't think. I don't think he'd be used as that guy because Pacheco just let him angry run the fuck out of every first and second down.
But what about Dallas possibly?
Dallas is going to need some folks there.
And they like you would think they would utilize him in that pass catching role. Houston would be an interesting option.
Yeah. I just think that he probably is best utilized. We talked about this before, just more as the pass catcher, not as a workhorse guy.
Right.
So if he's going to a team that's expecting him to get 250 touches over the season, I think that that's a bad fit at this stage. So I don't know that the Texans would want him to do that much. Maybe
right. Here's a team we haven't talked about for any of the running backs that I think might be an outside shot. What about Arizona? I know they have James Conner.
Yep.
But, I'm not saying Austin Eckler, but maybe one of these more pass catcher type running backs, have James Conner be your first, second down thumper, and then bring in one of these other guys as more of your pass catcher, spell James Conner. What do you think about that?
I like that, but I also know that Arizona, for some reason, is one of the most reluctant franchises in adding any legitimate back behind their oft-injured starter. So I don't know that any of the big names go there, but what about Antonio Gibson shipping off over there? All right, great. You wanted a pass catcher. That's supposedly what he is. So maybe send him there.
Yeah, I think that would actually be really interesting. So we got Hollywood in the chat here saying, which RB is going to be the first domino to fall? Which one do you think it's going to be, Jake?
I think it's a coin flip at this point between Saquon and Derrick Henry. The wild card for me is Josh Jacobs, who we didn't talk about yet, but let's throw him up because I think Josh Jacobs is the next guy to just re-sign with his team. I think the Raiders just bring him back.
I agree.
See that?
I'm with you on that one. Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere else. Stranger things have happened, but yeah, I tend to agree with you there.
So from that perspective, oftentimes, as we've already seen with the wide receivers, it's the guys who just get re-signed by their own team that's going to be the first domino. So I think it could be Josh Jacobs, but otherwise it's going to be Saquon or Derek.
Mhm.
Let's talk about Tony Pollard. Nobody really wants to, apparently, anymore because all these other names are out there in free agency. And Tony Pollard, it's like he really pooped in people's mouths last year. And I know for a fact he didn't do that. So
I think
let's
it's
talk
just
about,
because he was so highly. I mean, people were taking him in the second round last year.
Yeah.
And he severely disappointed. And I don't think people were wrong for taking him there because it looked like the volume and usage and the situation was all there for him to be a very high producing running back. But Mike McCarthy, he had other ideas, of course.
Well, and he was injured early on in the season, coming off of that injury. He looked better down the
Mhm.
stretch. You have to admit he finally looked better, but also he's probably just more like Lamar Miller than we really should have expected or did expect.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I don't think he's meant to be a feature back. I think,
Mhm.
when Zeke was there and he could play that spell to Zeke or kind of the thunder and lightning, where he was that switch up back. I think that's more his role, where he stays fresher throughout the course of the season and throughout games, where he can come in, spell a guy, break off those big plays, make some stuff happen because he's really fresh. I think that's his role, and that's his role perfectly. So if he can find a
Mhm.
team that would fit him in that way, like we saw a couple of seasons ago with the Zeke Pollard dynamic, I think that's the way to go.
I like that. Let me put on my galaxy brain cap here for a second. What if he goes back with his old offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, who now resides in Philly? Philly going to be looking for somebody unless they bring Swift back, which they haven't really indicated that they're going to do. And they still have those couple of fill-in guys where it's like Kenny Gainwell,
Right.
can take some of
Austin
the
Scott.
plotting off of them. Yeah, keep those guys. They're great guys. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Or bring in a duo. Bring in Tony Pollard and A.J. Dillon, whatever.
Right. I just don't know what their cap situation is and if they'd be able to sign what he's going to want. Again, we don't know what the running back market's going to be set at here either. But it really depends on their cap situation because they have a lot of high profile players on their team. So
Yeah.
that's
Eagles
my only.
have just under 40 mil
Oh,
in cap space. They are
Okay.
17th on the list, actually. So they're right in the sweet, beefy middle in terms of
right.
cap
But we
space
also
and
don't
team.
know
So could.
how many players they have to re-sign or sign to extensions.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true.
but I think it's a really interesting spot for him. I think that would be a really good spot
Mm-hmm.
for him. I just don't know if they're going to be able to afford someone at that level.
But I also don't think these guys are going to be that expensive again, just because of how
Right.
many of them are out there. So maybe again, we'll wait for that first domino to fall because that's going to tell us pretty much
Right. It's going to
everything.
set the market. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this guy just because, look, we're homers, and I feel like we need to maybe pour one out for A.J. Dillon. He's definitely not
Quadzilla.
getting re-signed. Quadzilla. I just saw the other day. I couldn't believe this. This might not even be true. I know I might just be this gullible. But it said A.J. Dillon was like the second most athletic running back to test at the combine since like 2000 or something like that. It was very odd. And I just thought,
Based on like all the things they do there,
yeah,
like the cone,
the
shuttle,
combination,
and, like
you might even say.
based
I
on
bet
his
that's where that
size,
comes from.
side speed, weight adjusted
Yes.
metrics.
Quad adjusted metrics, I think, is where he really thrived. But for the Packers, of course, very indebted to him. He's been very good and solid, but he's not Aaron Jones, which might be the most damning thing about him for the Packers standpoint. But there's got to be a legitimate, he can still be a good fit for a team.
Absolutely.
Like we talked about. But I struggle with like, where does he go someplace and get signed and actually have an increase to his fantasy value? That's really all I want to know. And
No.
where would that fit even be?
I don't see it. He is a good change of pace, a good spell guy. as we've grown very well accustomed to. He can fill in, short term if the lead guy is out for injury. He can fill in for a few games and get you through just fine. Occasionally, he'll have a breakout game, but I don't see him being a lead guy anywhere or really giving us any sort of huge fantasy production.
The one that intrigues me, and if he goes there, I'll be excited and back in, is the Browns. So Nick Chubb, with his injury and his age, is he going to come back and be the Nick Chubb of old? Would they be comfortable giving him the same workload? AJ Dillon feels like a good fit for that style of offense. They have Jerome Ford, who I thought was good as well, but maybe they're just looking to add bodies. AJ Dillon would do pretty well over there.
I think so. Stefanski loves that run first offense. So
so that might be the one that increases his fantasy value, but I don't think it's worth going out and trading for him. Supposing that right now, that feels...
What if, because I just there's always the surprise signings where guys go where you're not expecting it. The one team that we haven't talked about is the Giants. With Saquon leaving, they're obviously going to be in need of a running back. AJ Dillon's probably not going to be commanding that big a contract on the free agent market. Let's be honest. Is that a team that would just be like, yeah, let's sign him on, like a 3-year deal and then, use some draft capital on a couple, young running backs, but really he might be like the 1A in an offense. Would that do anything for you?
Yeah. I guess just because we would expect volume there, even if it's not necessarily good volume. And the Giants do have so much to work with in terms of money, not in terms of
talent,
necessarily talented guys right there. That sounded so much harsher than I thought it would, but
I know.
Really, I think it would be interesting. I think him or like Devin Singletary would probably be names that they'd just be like, yeah, we got to have a guy for a couple years at least. So yeah, I could get on board with that.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it pretty much for running backs, except for, I guess, DeAndre Swift. I feel bad short shrifting him, but in terms of names, DeAndre Swift is probably the last guy really left. So let's just ask this. Your ideal land spot for DeAndre Swift?
I think would be just back with Philly. If they can re-sign him and stay in that offense he's been with, at least this last year, familiarity with the team. They're going to be making a Super Bowl run. So if you want a chance at that ring, that's the team to do it.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I just wish they would utilize him more as a pass catcher, which they just seem so reluctant to do because that's where so much of his fantasy value came from. So what about the Vikings?
That was the other one I was going to say was the Vikings, since they are in need of a running back. Yep.
Ty Chandler isn't going to be the guy, I can't imagine.
No CJ Ham for you there over in Minnesota.
Could always rely on the old ham bone. Richard in the chat. What up, Richard? Welcome into you, by the way. Oh, Hollywood Titan, by the way, in reference to AJ Dillon. Do the Browns still have Kareem Hunt? I don't honestly know. He might be a free agent as well, if I'm not mistaken. But also, I don't know that Kareem Hunt really gets in anybody's way at this point. He's just been so kind of lackluster for them that he might be. That's as much as I can say. All right, one other quarterback I'm interested in before we go here. Really?
Okay.
Jameis Winston. Come on.
Jameis.
Let's talk about Jameis Winston a little bit. He deserves, I think, the opportunity to at least compete for a starting role. But is there a starting role out there for him anywhere? Can you envision one?
New England?
Yeah.
That's the first one that comes to mind. Maybe Pittsburgh. If they're truly like just giving us a smoke show now, saying that they aren't interested, maybe there. But there's not a lot of places that I can see him getting a legitimate shot.
There's so many teams that need a quarterback. There's so many that can't afford to trade up and get one in the draft. I mean, what about the Broncos? Again, they don't have any money to really work with, but they got to have somebody there. He would
Mhm.
at least
You
get
and
the
Josh,
opportunity.
you guys are like mind melding here tonight. Here,
Boom. We are so on top of things. That probably doesn't bode well, actually. That probably means that none of our joint predictions are going to come true. But I do like it, even though they have like negative $30 million to work with, or
yeah. I mean, there's the
Commanders, I guess.
There's the Vikings, but
Yes.
I don't know. That doesn't excite
Seahawks.
me. Yeah,
Seahawks to compete.
I just don't see him revitalizing his career at this point and becoming a weekly starter that you can rely on.
Yeah. I'm still going to trade a 3rd round pick for him in Dynasty or whatever. I'm just going to throw something
Well, I
out
think
there.
it'd be worth having him on your roster for Dynasty. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like he's not worth it, because quarterbacks get hurt. Even if he's a backup somewhere, he's going to end up probably getting some playing time at some point. So it's worth having him just for that. But like I said, I just don't see his days as being an every week starter. I think for the most part are behind him, unless he has some magical season where guy in front of him gets hurt and he has, that just Geno Smith type season. That would be the only thing that would save him at this point.
Comes in, throws 40 touchdowns, 40 interceptions. That would be incredible to behold. But I think you're right, probably with Jameis. Anybody else that you want to talk about here in free agency?
No, I think we've really hit the big ones here. I mean, the only other, I say big name, but kind of getting up there in age is OBJ, free agent.
Sure.
He looked fine in, snatches here this last season, coming back from that injury, but he has had quite an injury history at this point. So you'd think that's probably slowing him down a little bit. Not saying he can't be a useful piece on a team. I just, he's not going to be the main guy. He's going to be like at minimum the second option, maybe the third on a team. But I think
Panthers, come on, just project all of these guys to the Panthers.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, what about KC? Huh?
There you go. That's
Would
the
that
one that's
tighten the
actually been
pants?
signed. Not really. No.
No.
I would not fall into the trap. I won't fall into the OBJ trap. Could still be good for an actual NFL
regular
team,
football,
but
yeah, just not for fantasy. Yeah,
Yep, I
I'm
agree
with you
with
there. Okay.
All right. We did it. Look at us.
Anyone else you want to touch on? Anything else here before we sign off for the evening here, Jake?
Not really. I do think it would be very funny if Joe Flacco signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, just because it would crater 3 fan bases all at once. But I don't think we will get so lucky, unfortunately.
I want it just for that. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
just to see that happen. Even if he's just the backup, it would just be incredible. It would be
Social
incredible.
media would literally burn to the ground in a day
God.
if that happened. But again, I don't think we're that lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can hope, though. We can hope.
Yes, we absolutely can.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for this week, folks. Thank you all for joining us that are joining us live here. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It was great seeing you all and working with you here. So join us here every single week. We go live Tuesday evenings. If you are new to the show, this is when you can find us pretty much every single week. Non-point scoring season and regular season. This is where we're doing our thing. Please go out, give us a rate and review, subscribe to our podcast wherever you find your podcast. Follow us on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, at Drinking Fantasy. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll get the notifications when we go live every week. All that good stuff that you like to do for a podcast you support, and we truly do appreciate it. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.